evening, everyone. So today we're joined by Jimmy Kunes and Angus Clark, singer and guitarist of Kunes Clark, who join us to promote their brand new self-titled album and their recently performed record release show that took place in New York City at the Bitter End. So Jimmy and Angus, welcome to Metal Mayhem ROC.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, and our special guest of today's show is Kenny, the man on the street, Kessel. Kenny, welcome to Metal Mayhem ROC.
Thanks for having me, Walt. Thanks for having me. Great seeing that show last night with you. I'm glad you came.
It was fun.
Absolutely. And we're going to cover off on that show later on. But guys, seriously, congratulations on the new album. It's out now on Deko Entertainment. Really kicks ass. We're going to talk all about that album. There it is. The visual of it. Beautiful. I got my CD over here. But, you know, you guys have some history and legacy together. But what I'd like to do first is for our listeners, get to know you guys a little bit on your own. And we'll go with Jimmy first. So, Jimmy, you have a long history. You know, you fronted bands such as Cactus, Savoy Brown. You work with Kim Simmons. You have solo material. You played in sort of these free and humble pie legacy bands. And looking down your list, especially in the hard rock blues avenue, you've performed and collaborated with Simon Kirke of Bad Company, Dave Bucket Caldwell, a lot of others. So, you know, take us down your history. How long have you been at it as a blues rock singer?
Well, you know, I've always sung my whole life. Just getting back to my first band, it was a dual lead vocal situation with the late C.J. Snare from Firehouse, who unfortunately passed away this past year. That was in high school, and we both knew what we wanted to do, and we were doing it even back then. You know, we were lucky in the north central Pennsylvania. We came from a town called Lock Haven, right in between Williamsport and State College, and there was some great bands. As a matter of fact, my friend Steve Lynn was at the gig last night. He sold us all our first guitars and keyboards and stuff like that. And you know, I moved to Scotland in 1977. I was there till 81, and I picked up bands, and I had some great situations musically over there. And plus, it was beginning of the new wave of British heavy metal bands, and still there was all the great classic rock bands like David Coverdale's Whitesnake with Mickey Moody and Bernie Marsden, Gillan, Nazareth, UFO, and I used to go to the Glasgow Apollo and see them all. And when I moved back to the States in 81, I started to look around in Connecticut. I joined a band called Little Maniacs, and I started to do some auditions. I always knew I'd end up in New York City, where I eventually did an audition and got the gig with Greg Smith and Rick Ventura and my friend Steve Wexler. That was a band called Silent Partner, and that was just post Riot. So after that, you know, I was living in Brooklyn, working in Manhattan, going back to Brooklyn, driving out to Long Island for rehearsal every day. And I was just like, I thought there's got to be a better way. And I answered a Village Voice advert and talked to my friend Arnie Goodman. He had the premier heavy metal shop in Brooklyn called Zigzag Records, and Metallica and all those bands used to do, and Fast Eddie Clark and Motorhead, they did in stores. So there was that kind of action. And Arnie let slip, you know, who the world-class lead guitarist was Kim Simmons. I went and I got the audition, and 2 weeks later, I was out on the road with Iron Butterfly, Leslie Weston Mountain, Mark Farner, my good friend Mark Clark. I wish he could have come to the show last night. He was on the list, but from Coliseum, and he was playing bass with Corky and Leslie, and us, Savoy Brown, and that lasted till about 1987, 86, I ended up firmly back moving into New York City, started to play around, do gigs. The Cat Club was around then, you know, there was a vibrant rock and roll scene, the Marquee, you know, and I always wrote, I was playing guitar by that time pretty well, good rhythm guitar and acoustic guitar. So I've always been a writer. So I've never kind of like suffered in the not having enough material. It's just like looking around and see who I want to collaborate with. You know, I've been very lucky with this guy, I would say. You know, and then, you know, after Savoy Brown in 2006, my friend Randy Pratt, he had a studio out in the island, and he helped me record my first solo record. John Garner from Sir Lord Baltimore's on the first track. Jimmy Kunes and Love Train. That is Slow Moving Vehicle. And then in 2006, I want to say, I worked with Simon and my friend Rob Kearns on bass he's with Sheryl Crow now, and from Skinnerd, and he was Cry of Love. So I actually tried out for Cry of Love down in North Carolina. But it was kind of a situation like, okay, pack everything up in New York and move down to Raleigh. And I was like, I just didn't have the gut about it, you know. And they ended up with the right singer and Kelly. And plus he was one of their homeboys, you know. So it was like all North Carolinians. And you know, since then I've been really lucky. I got asked to join Cactus, like I was saying, from Randy. Asked me in 2006. We played Sweden Rock that year, which I think was probably the best year. The headliners were like Whitesnake and Ted Nugent, Alex Harvey Band. Alice Cooper was there. We were there. The Sweet was there. Crucified Barber. It was just so great. 3 of the best days of my life. And that was with Tim Bogert, Jim McCarty, Carmine, the original Cactus. And I, of course, replaced the late Rusty Day. And it was a good fit. It was a good fit, I think. You know, I think a lot of people thought it was, but it felt.
It was
good.
a great fit.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, man. And I ended up doing 3 records: Cactus 5, Black Dawn, and Tightrope, which I wrote all the lyrics and melodies for on those records.
Great records.
Thank you, Angus. Yeah.
Really tight though, Jimmy. I interviewed you the day it came out, and what a great album. It's just I wish I'd had wheels on. I wish you taught it. I really do. That was a great album, man. You should be proud of that.
I was kind of blown away by Tightrope, and that was Jay-Z mixing, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
and Jay-Z mixed our record.
Yeah,
so I had been listening to Tightrope around the time, you know.
Yeah, did I send that to you? Did I send you the link?
I just pulled it up on my phone. Yeah. I said, I'm gonna listen to that record.
Man, I gotta tell you. I was
like, man, this record sounds good.
I have rough mixes of that record before we put a lot of overdubs on. And I said, some of the stuff I sent to Carmine, I said, you send this to Classic Rock and this would be a hit. Like some of the working mixes, you know, sometimes I find that if you put a little too much into it, maybe it's just a little too much, you know.
I think it came out
Thank
great.
you, man. Thanks. Yeah. And that was Paul Warren and Carmine. I think Carmine wanted Paul Warren, who was the last guitar player in the band, the version that I played with. They just celebrated 30,000 radio stations played Papa Was a Rolling Stone. And Paul Warren out there, hey, Paulie, he played guitar on that. He's still getting money from that because he joined the musicians.
And you do that song justice, Jimmy. You really did.
Well, that's a dual lead vocal between Paul and I.
That's true. That's true.
He laid down the vocal. I said, why don't you just do the whole, I don't want to push you out. And so he gave me all the hard verses. But I think it turned out all right. All the scat singing verses. I think it turned out all right, though.
Jimmy, you also had the Jimmy Tunes congregation. And I also noticed maybe that slipped under the radar, us being a metal show, that you did some recording, again, with Rick Ventura of Riot. We're very close with Rick. But also with Exciter, the Canadian new wave of British heavy metal band, and some work with Freddie Villano, who, as we know now, is in the Rod. So tell us a little bit about some of your, let's say, the stuff you did a little bit in the metal category.
And with Bill from Firehouse, Flood the Engine.
Flood the Engine project, yeah. Like I some good friends of ours came and our friends Sue and Steve I was telling you about earlier, and his wife's brother came in with a Flood the Engine shirt, and I'm like, man, and he actually prints shirts. We might need to talk about printing, and we need to get some Kunes Clark shirts.
I need one because I got a large. I'm not a large anymore, Jimmy. It doesn't fit me.
You know, I might have an extra large here from Steve.
I need one. And the Exciter photo.
Earmark for you. I also there's a good friend of mine, Chris Bickley. He reached out to me. He had reached out to me through the years. He plays with the Beehive Queen from Saturday Night Live Band, and he does solo records and stuff too. I know him through a friend of mine from the Bonesmen, Frankie Thomas and Bonesmen, Connecticut guys. And we did a song called, and you can look it up on YouTube. This Time It's Gonna Hurt, and it almost turned out like a Steve Jones when he played with Iggy Pop kind of single, real immediate single. And the same thing with Freddie and American Mafia, Freddie Villano and Tom Jude. they sent me some songs and said, "Hey, do you want to sing a couple songs?" And that's actually how I got Bobby Marks hired for the Humble Pie thing, because we played 2 songs on the American Mafia album. I can't remember what the name of it was. It's got a bullet hole or something like that.
It's the Jimmy
I have it.
Encyclopedia.
I know.
Right
I'm
there.
exhausted already.
This is amazing.
I just listened to an interview with Joe Elliott from Def Leppard, and Joe Elliott is almost as big a fan of, like encyclopedic knowledge of the music that influenced him. He's almost to Jimmy's level, but not quite.
He's definitely a real enthusiast for sure. Yeah,
He really is.
Yeah, Def Leppard was actually one of the headliners when we played Sweden Rock, and we were backstage. Carmine and I were hanging out with Brian Robertson, and we kind of nodded. The bassist he kind of stays to himself. He gets a little wants to be away from all the action. But we were walking around, and Joe had his Mick Ronson shirt on. I said, "I tried to order one of those. Oh, I bought them all. He said, "Don't even. They're not available anymore. I bought them all." Yeah. So that's like goes to show you, who isn't a Mick Ronson fanatic like I am,
That was a classic Bowie era with Mick Ronson, and just to hang with Brian Robertson. I'm a huge Thin Lizzy.
Oh man, that was really
and that's Brian Robertson's the genuine article. I mean, I know that there are, like that chair has also a chair. That's a terrible Broadway way of referring to it. that guitar slot in Thin Lizzy, was also occupied by Gary Moore and then John Sykes. But Brian Robertson is the guitar player on Jailbreak and on Alive and Dangerous.
Amazing.
So he's the genuine article, and you watch him, it's like he's got the cigarette between these 2 fingers while he's picking, and it's just the completely legit scene over there. I can't get over how cool Brian Robertson.
Come on, he was in Motorhead. Another Perfect Day.
I love that. That's my favorite album, man, by them.
Yeah. So
we were hanging out. He let me play his guitar. He's and I think he said that Phil bought him the Black Beauty that he had, and he had this leather strap that he went like this, and the thing didn't move. It was almost like it was all one unit.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Jimmy, check out the neck. It's all worn down." And I was just like, I can't believe I'm playing this. And that was at Sweden Rock.
You're gonna have a hard time getting us to talk about ourselves, basically. What's going on? We can
So Jimmy, this is great, man. We can go on all day. Angus, I want to give you some time, for you to talk about it. And I will say my Angus experience is, it seems like about every other year or so, I end up at the Prudential Center going to see Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And there's you down front with Chris Caffrey and the band and the beautiful background singers, and there's fire and flames and explosions. And I always look forward to what Savatage songs are going to be played. So we know you best from TSO and touring, but you got a big diverse career. You've been a Rock of Ages. You perform with lots of different artists, Kitaro, Cher, Joe Lynn Turner, who's a local guy. And you have some of your own metal collaborations, Metal Church, Dee Dee Verni, and others. I see the TSO tour was just announced this week, right? So there's the date at the Prudential Center. I'll probably take my family down there, but give us a little background on your history now.
Well, I'm glad you get to see the TSO at the Prudential Center. I'm never there. I'm in the West Coast band, so you're seeing Joel Hoekstra and Chris, and I play the same side of the stage as Chris. Like I'm kind of
token blonde.
I'm the stage right guitar player. And actually, but I go by Angus Clark. My first name is Chris, and Chris Caffrey and I were our last. So we were both in school, probably both known as Chris C. And then, and we're like the exact same age. But I get mistaken for Joel all the time as well, even though he's like 6 inches taller than I am. Joel is like, when we stand next to each other, you're like, I would never mistake these, but I get mistaken for him all the time. And that's part of the reason why Joel called me to. Joel was doing the Cher gig, and he had Whitesnake dates that conflicted, and that's how I wound up playing for Cher. So apparently, from a distance, I can double in for Joel fairly well, but I can't play 8 fingers on the neck. I don't have any of like the technique, but I got my chops, but I don't have Joel's chops.
Are you gonna tell us next that you joined Accept? Because I don't know if he's an Accept for this tour or not, but
yeah, I mean that was part.
I think it was only the European.
You'll have me this year. You'll have Angus next year. No. So I mean, we go back to the start. I was in band. I grew up in New York City. So New York City, born and raised, Upper West Side, and went to Bronx Science, and been having bands of my own ever since the early '80s. But I went to college in LA, which was like '85 to '89, so it was like full blown hair band era while I was there in LA. So I got a little bit of the taste of the Sunset Strip at that point between classes because I was a very good student, and. And actually, the biggest thing going in LA when I was getting done there was Racer X with Paul Gilroy. Went on.
Hell yeah.
Two Ingve Malmsteens in the same band. It was like insane. So I was all into the chops thing. And then when I got out of college, I was hunting around for a couple of years for kind of the right thing. I was doing some original music. And I had this band called Naked Sun who were on Noise International. And they were signed when I joined, and they were dropped soon after. And we went around. We played some shows around the States we've self-recorded. That was the era of the ADAT. Everybody made their own record, right? This is like '92, and we were big hair and very prog, but not kind of Dream Theater prog. It was more artsy prog, like Yes, Vandergraaf Generator kind of prog. Yes. And I know I was still a fan, but it just wasn't what was happening. Yeah. So we get to LA and we played this showcase. We like every gig we played was with Weezer. It was like us and Weezer, us and like a newly signed Weezer. Like the writing was on the wall. What was going on? We were massively out of step. So I got seen by a woman who worked for this new age artist named Kitaro. It's kind of he's one of the most legendary new age artists, Japanese guy, very influenced by Tangerine Dream and that. And I got offered this gig to play with him, and the band was all fighting with each other. We didn't get another record deal, so I was like, that's it. I'm going to go make some money playing my guitar. So I started a career as a sideman. And this was the heyday of New Ages when Yanni at the Acropolis was huge, and like John Tesh at Red Rocks. And then I was Kitaro at the Marin Center. It was like, we were kind of like, Kitaro, I think, is the more heavyweight artist of those 3 names. He's up there with like Vangelis and those kinds of guys. Just wasn't as commercially, viable as Yanni really hit it out of the park. But it was great. I got to see the world in Japan, Jakarta, China, all over Europe, like did all this amazing touring. This is all by the time I'm 30. So I was like pretty psyched and got a lot of experience in there, played with great people. Lorenzo Ponce, who's been in Bon Jovi for years, and Sheryl Crow's band as well, and stuff like that. Great people in the band and all that. So I had this, I had a lot of footage of me playing like symphonic rock in black pants and a white shirt. And when the TSO spot opened up, I sent them that footage. And they said, well, there's a guy playing symphonic rock in a black pants and a white shirt. Get him the tux. And that was it. I was in like, but the actual connection was a referral from Megadeth, solo artist Marty Friedman, who was in Megadeth for years. Sure. Marty and I had gotten to be friends. He was a big fan of Kitaro. He would come see the Kitaro shows. So he referred me to the TSO, and that's how I wound up in that. And in the middle there, I've been doing all these songwriting projects, one of which was a few songs that I showed to Jimmy, like, hey, what could we do with these? Because a bass player who shall remain nameless in this interview failed to show up for a rehearsal, like many bass. No
And they were
offense.
3 fully formed demos that were amazing. And I was just like, wow, thanks for this gift. And I think if memory serves, it maybe it was 2 sessions. We might have knocked them all out in the same day. One song, the song "Let It Begin," Angus had formed the whole sort of theme about "Let It Begin," about the opening show, which we opened the show with last night, and and I just basically took it from there and added some nuances and stuff, and through the years, I don't want to cut you off, but through the years, I just kept calling them, saying like, "Man, these songs are terrific. We should try and do something with these." And I thought I could get us a deal with Cleopatra, and then do you want to tell them the story about with Charlie?
Oh, so Charlie Calv owns Deko Entertainment, and
Good guy. Good.
yeah, great guy. They're awesome label, and they've provided us all the label services in getting the record distributed and all that kind of stuff. And so amongst the many gigs that I've had, adjacent to Trans-Siberian Orchestra, like going down and doing Rock of Ages, where I was subbing for Joel. That's the first time I subbed for Joel. and then he, getting me on the share gig. So at one point we had Dee Verni from Overkill. Maybe some people don't know this. Dee has a side project from Overkill called the Bronx Casket Company. And the Bronx
Aware of it.
Okay. So the Bronx Casket Company were these like, really sludgy, heavy records. It's like it's not the fast stuff. It's like heavy.
Right.
Like, I like it. I mean, I love Overkill, but I really like Bronx Casket Company a lot. And so he had made these records, and I guess I'm not sure, I don't want to get this wrong. I feel like it's his sister-in-law or something like that. Like he's a family connection of his works in musical theater and wrote, essentially a musical or a rock opera using the music from the Bronx Casket Company albums. And she took the book and the concept and the music and submitted it to a kind of a nonprofit that solicits gets producers involved. And these 2 producers who had both worked on The Wiz, like they were like the choreographer and musical director from The Wiz, were like, we want to do this. So now there's this opportunity, and the guys from The Wiz like called musicians that they knew. So they got all these guys who are much more like R&B background, to play this stuff that's on like guitars that are tuned down to C sharp. And, we're like, all this metal stuff that only metal guys like me would know to do. Right. And like this band in there, and Dee goes in and it's just like, nothing sounds right. This is awful. Like, what are you doing to my music? So he calls the TSO office, like, do you have some guys that can know how to do this stuff and can show up on time and can read music if need be? And they're like, yeah, we know a guy. His name's Angus Clark. So I went, and that's when I first met Dee was doing these previews for this Bronx Casket Company rock opera. And we got to know each other, and then he would call me occasionally. So I played on his solo record, and I played on his rockabilly record. And
That's a good album.
It's great, right? Dee Verni and the Cadillac Band. We had huge fun, and so when the last round of dates, Charlie Calv, who is also the keyboard player in Angel, came in and was playing keys with Dee Verni and the Cadillac Band. He just says, I have a label. Let me know if you have anything. And that's like just 6 months before I run into Van at the Trader. Van Romaine's the drummer who played on the record. I run into Van at the Trader Joe's here in Millburn. And then I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm touring with Enrique Iglesias, but I have a few days off in October. What do you want to do? And I was just like, well, and so he literally played all the drums on the record, like between playing shows at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
Wow.
Norma Dome shows.
We just went up to his place. I just went to his place. It's like 10 minutes from my house.
It
We
was
recorded everything there. And then he went and played the Guard. And then he came back and we did 2 more dates. And then he was back off on tour with.
But taking it back, though, guys, what I want to know is, when did the two of you meet each other? Like, what is your history together? Because you mentioned some of the material goes back like 10, 15 years ago. Where did your paths cross? Like, when did you become friends or collaborators or city guys?
Oh, at Virgil's,
The
right?
guy that was there with you, that
Paul.
brought you to Virgil's, was there last
I know,
night.
I know. Yeah, it's so bizarre because they're good friends of ours, Paul and Lola, that they live out in Huntington. And I used to be the office manager. I worked with Andy Hilfiger at Jennifer Lopez at J-Lo, her label. And that was behind the offices were behind the on 6th Avenue behind the library. And so we would go to Virgil's Barbecue because they had a great happy hour. And I walked in and my friend Paul had this Arthur Lee in Love shirt on. And I said, wow, cool shirt. He goes, you probably don't remember that band. I said, Arthur Lee, I remember that. Alone Again. Remember Kenny? They did on Lights Out, they did Alone Again, or by UFO. And I said, I said, I'm Jimmy Kunes. I used to front Savoy Brown. And he said, get the F out. And I said, that's the reason why I don't tell anyone. Half the time they don't believe you. Yeah, and that's how I met Angus. Were you bartending then? Or no, you were just in there having a beer.
I think so. Yeah.
And, and like you do, Angus is a cool looking guy. How you doing? And so we struck up a friendship. And I think eventually, did you introduce me to Paul McGilloway then down at Arlene's?
Yeah, well, like
I think we did.
Yeah. So this was probably,
that's when ZO2 used to have the residency there.
Yeah. So this was probably like 2008 or right? No,
2006.
Six. Okay. Yeah.
2000, yeah. Around the time I joined Cactus yet?
No,
I don't think so.
No.
So maybe 2004, 2005.
So I used to work at Virgil's, but I wasn't working there anymore. I think I was going to a concert. You were going to a concert. That's why we both were in there, and we met. And then I can't remember what the next connection was, but then there was this Arlene's Groceries, this club in the city, and they had this live band karaoke nights on Mondays. And which was just mental. It was like
it was really, really popular globally with our friend Paul McGilloway.
It was insane, but you were kind of dubious of it. You're like, I don't want to sing karaoke.
Oh, I was a purist back then.
I'm not going to sing karaoke.
But when I heard the band, I was like, and after I met Paul, we were like real big Rory Gallagher fans, really big Thin Lizzy, as with Angus. And through the years, we've done gigs, all of us together. And then, and Angus and I have opened up at BB King's for Richie Kotzen, for Butch Trucks Band. I mean, and we did our Deep Purple Mark III thing there.
Yeah. So anyway, so that after meeting there, and getting down to Arlene's, Paul McGilloway is another amazing guitar player. Lives out on the island now. He's got that the hard British blues rock. Yep. Wired, and there were just wound up being certain occasions to play. I think we did like a whole show of UFO tunes up at American Trash.
That's right.
That was hilarious.
We did Arlene's Grocery. What did we play? We did the purple thing.
We did the entirety of Machine Head front to back.
That's right.
With Pemberton on bass. He was there.
That's right. He was there.
He was there at the show.
Yeah.
And then after we did Machine Head, we decided that was too mainstream.
Well, I did, because I have those tendencies to be off the beaten path and feel like you want to turn people on to something.
And so new. Greg Smith was around. And if you don't know Greg's been Ted Nugent forever, and he was in kind of the last edition of Rainbow.
Dear old friend of ours. Yeah.
And is a great singer as well as a bass player. So the idea was we would do a Deep Purple Mark III,
the Coverdale Hughes
tribute. So
nice.
Deep Purple, none of the hits. That was the idea.
Right.
Because why play the hits?
Mistreated.
Well, Burn's the biggest hit.
Burn. Yeah.
No, you want to getting tighter. Who doesn't want to play Getting Tighter?
Well, that's
why don't you guys do Come Taste the Band?
Stuff. I was trying to get to that. We did. Did we do a couple bowling tunes? We're Getting Tighter is great.
Taste the Band. Yeah.
They're not great tunes. They're great tunes. They just have a very selective appeal.
Hey, did you know that Glenn Hughes was a little bit? He had to leave and go back to England. I think they were recording at Musicland in Germany. But Tommy Bolin plays bass on I'm coming home. Oh.
No way.
Yeah, that's Tommy Bolin because Glenn Hughes wasn't available.
It's a great open.
I read that and I was like, I never knew that.
And man, I just love it that Glenn is still performing, and he's got a killer band. I think it's
Is it Sorensen still?
Yeah,
Yeah, great.
So good.
Soren Anderson.
Yeah.
Soren.
Yeah, so good. And Soren has the right boots. He's got the white boots. When I played with Joe Lynn, I went and bought the white boots.
That's when I met you. I met you at Brian's backyard with Joe.
Exactly. I brought the white boots. I think I brought them in a separate bag.
I'll check my pictures. I might have them on.
Brian sent me an email. He wants us to play.
Yes, I saw that.
Did you see that?
I know. We should,
by the way, another big.
You're gonna do the festival next summer?
He sent me an email. He said I'm getting the lineup together, and I thought, hey, let me get this gig and stuff out of the way, and I'll give you a shout. So
good.
But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna play for Joe Lynn, I mean, you got to have the pointy-toed white boots on. And I showed up. I showed up, and I think the drummer was like, "What's with the boots?" And I was like, "Where are your white boots?" I'm playing with Joe Lynn Turner. I'm wearing the white boots.
Now, Angus, is that what? Then you moved to New Jersey, and Joe moves to Eastern Europe. Like, was it the white boots?
Was it the boots?
I have to say it was a true honor, pleasure, and a privilege to play with Joe. I mean, and I said this just in another interview the other day. It's like the feeling you get when you're on stage with a singer and like they open their mouth and that kind of power comes out. I get the same thing with Jimmy.
You're sitting right next to it.
It's so like kind of it's so cool. I mean, there's just a few experiences I've had like that where it's just like whatever comes down in the TSO. We've had Paul Rogers guest with us. We've had John Anderson from Yes. We've had and so. And you're using in-ear monitors, so you kind of have like this like direct line from the microphone. So like when John Anderson's on there going, in and around the lake, and I'm sitting there with a string, panicking. Sweaty palms and all, sitting there with the nylon string, waiting for the roundabout part. It's just super cool. So I get that thrill when we did the stuff with Jim, getting to record him. So I recorded him on those demos just in this rehearsal room on 8th Avenue in the city. And
we kept those vocals.
We kept those vocals for the record. We didn't re-record that.
And through the years, I just thought, I might be able to top these, but the performance was there. And I think it was just the circumstance of me being so excited that Angus offered me these songs, and they were fully formed and the arrangements were there. And I was just like, this is right up my alley. And actually, right here, Angus recorded me for the 8th track on the album, Free and Homeward Bound. And I said, Angus, we need another track, 4 per side, old school vinyl. And Angus recorded my vocal right here in his studio for that track as well, which is, I don't know, it's beyond my favorite track, of one of my favorite tracks of all time, of anything that I've ever done with anyone.
It's a special song.
That song closes the album, but I mean, it's moody, it's atmospheric, it's a little bit somber, right? But it's kind of this beautiful track, right? Jimmy, your vocals shine on that. You shine on that track.
Thank you. Well, how about his Martin guitar? That rings on that track.
Yeah.
Well, you know what it is? It's going through the struggle of life and feeling like we all do, left out in the cold sometimes, maybe through your fault, maybe it wasn't your fault, but you gotta have that reflex in life where you break the chains that confine you, and in the end, with every step, another mile. Because I'm free and homeward bound, how in the end, it's all okay.
Yeah. There's a lot. I was just reading the album, the song titles, and there's a lot of positivity in all of it. And that's where I know that just in the amount of time we've been spending together working on the record, like that's where Jimmy's head's been at.
I think it's important. I think that my grandfather was a Lutheran pastor, and I think maybe I got a little bit of that. Hence the name Jimmy Coon's Congregation, which that album eventually, that's about half done.
I was going to ask you about that, Jimmy. That's the third solo album. That was supposed to be out in 223 or something, right?
Yeah. But then with the Humble Pie thing was going on, the pandemic, the start again, the Cactus dates, they were on again, they were off again. And it was just, it was the proper time for me to leave Cactus and really concentrate on things. But, I had so much material in the can before the pandemic. It's the only thing that kept me sane, really. I thought, and then I look back and I thought, how in the earth did I get all that material done? It's just, and Angus knows, it's just like nose to the grindstone. Bring me the next project.
Yeah.
I live for the next song kind of thing. And that's my big buzz. And I'm sure it's Angus's as well. And we got 8 good buzzes on this one right here.
You definitely do. This album flows. It really flows. It does.
So guys, you hit on the point. The demos that you recorded, the original recordings of the vocal and the demo. Which tracks are those? Let's talk about those vocals and which tracks are those?
It's Cross to Bear, Release Yourself, and Let It Begin.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's those 3. So
now, that Cross to Bear, like that's that. I call it like a honky tonk twang to it. It's just it's like
kind of got a little Scottish kind of.
Yeah, it's a catchy and like you just feel good about it. And then you get the soulful keyboards come across, and then like your vocals, Jimmy, really like they're raspy, but they're really warm. Like if that song brought me in. I really like that one.
What's interesting is when I was really young, when CJ and I were young in church choir and in school choir and stuff, I mean, we were like, what would it be? Not contralto. Is that contralto close to soprano?
Well, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I just remember, my voice is so crystal. And I was listening to people like Paul Rogers and Frankie Miller and Joe Cocker. God, there's just so many. Otis Redding. I went back because I knew that, Frankie Miller was really into Otis Redding and Sam Cooke and like just so many great, amazing singers. And I just, you were saying about that certain edge in the voice. And when I think, number one, I think it was the way that Angus recorded my vocal tracks, but I had this edge. And I found that with that being the template, that I could apply that same kind of edge to the rest of the songs on the record for the continuity. Now, our engineer, Josh, that engineers my vocals for the Cactus stuff and for a lot of my solo stuff, and that worked with Angus and I on the record.
That's who we sat next to, Jimmy?
Did a great job. Jay-Z Barrel.
Yeah.
Yep. He was there last night. And
I think he sat with us.
Yeah, he's at the table with us.
Yeah, and he said, he goes, man, are you sure you want to replace the rhythm section? It's pretty good, And Angus had the vision. And I'll tell you what, Van came in with Winston, and they played together, I guess, for like 30 years. It was just amazing the synchronicity. And then like Van knew Rob, and of course I did a record with Van in 1993 called Love Junkies. It was
wow.
Project. And I had never met him because they had everything in the can. Hal Cragen, that eventually went on to produce and play with Iggy Pop for many years, was the bassist. And we were talking about that after rehearsal. He said, wow, Hal Cragen. I think he still lives in France. He married a French woman. But yeah, what was I talking about?
Just how we were replacing the rhythm section. So yeah, we kept the I would have done those demos in this studio using like a drum machine or loops. I was kind of just getting into computer-based recording and stuff like that. And so I would have been using loops and like some loop libraries and things like that for the drums. And I probably played the bass myself. I know I played the bass myself on Cross to Bear, and tracking the guitars just there in the room or in my back bedroom. I was living in Brooklyn at the time. And, this rehearsal room in the city was like, just barely hanging on by a thread. And like, I could only work in there if the death metal band in the next room was not rehearsing, that kind of place. And so just getting...
Did you know John York?
What's that?
Did you know John York?
I don't know that
I did.
He was in the music building over there, 34th Street.
I met him at Lucille's for a gig that I played. He was doing sound.
He was the sound guy at BB King's. I used to do the camera, assist the cameraman there. Yeah, John York worked over there.
Yeah,
sorry.
Good guy.
So then Release Yourself was again a bunch of drums. I actually had a drummer track it, but when we decided to go with Van and Winston, who are old friends, and recorded Van, I was just like, let's make it sound like a band. So we'll just
For continuity purposes, it really did pay off. It really did.
Cut it, and I can't say strongly enough what those guys brought to the project.
And humor and smiles and good jokes, really, and great stories.
Yeah, and if folks that are listening aren't aware, like Van has done a ton of session work, so he's probably on a lot of records you don't realize, who's playing on them. But he's been he's the main drummer. The first Steve Morse Band album was made with Rod Morgenstern on drums from Winger and the Dregs, but subsequent to that, it was Van in the Steve Morse Band, like for the rest of eternity, and then and a bunch of other awesome stuff. And he used to play, as one of the things about the Bitter, I didn't really get into this on stage in the banter, but the Monday night jam at the Bitter End was like this legendary thing. And now it's been the last like decade or more, it's been this guy Osnoy, and it's like kind of very fusion based. But at the time I kind of started going there, it was a guy named Gordon Gaines, who I think was also the bar manager. So he was like the bar manager. He would be icing down the drinks behind the bar, and then he would go pull his amp out of the back of the club, put it on the stage. Then Van would show up, and his wife played bass, and they would do this power trio, crazy, guitar bonanza where Gordon sang and played. And like I would see Van there, and then at some point I actually got up the nerve to introduce myself to Gordon, and through a connection through a friend, and I got to jam. And I don't think Van was drumming that night, but I got up on stage. That was like the first time I got on stage at the Bitter End, was with this guy Gordon Gaines, and Van was his drummer for most of the time that he played there. So like when we finally connected, like last year, about, hey, would you like to play on the record? Like I brought up the thing, and I was like, yeah, man, I saw you play with Gordon. There's footage of you online of doing it. And he's like, and then we got in this whole thing about it. So the fact that we all came back together, he hasn't played at the Bitter End in years, because he's like, now he's Enrique Iglesias' his musical director,
Well.
So the fact that when we were looking to do a gig, I thought, let's do it there. Because it's a beautiful club. And
the brand new sound system 2 weeks ago.
New PA, they have a Hammond organ. And so it was kind of a real comeback, and it was a nice bonding thing for kind of everybody involved. Winston, our bass player, also knew Gordon, and both those guys, all three of them have, with Rob Flores included, have played the Bitter End like a million times. So it was just kind of nice to do it there. It was a great party. Thank you guys for being there. It was awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
No, it was a great night, and it was awesome to hear. I mean, you guys played all 8 songs from the album, and you played the cover Lucille. It was great. I mean, Roger Earl and his wife Linda were there. Charlie, of course. But maybe going back up to the Joe Franco, going back up to the album, guys. I want to give you the time to talk about the songs, because that's what's the most important stuff here. Step Up and Step Aside. That's like your single, your video. I mean, even the video's cool. You guys kind of have that old sexy girl, the drag racing down the street. It looks like it's in Cuba or something. I don't know, but that was the first song that came out a couple months ago, and I remember hearing it, and I was like, holy crap, man, this is like high energy blues rock. It's just ripping guitar. I'm like, just felt like I was like pulling a Foghat album out from the 70s.
I like that.
Yeah, I don't know. So like, talk about some of these songs.
That West Side Story kind of. I was like, is it West Side Story?
I think it's. I don't know what. Like that's a video. I mean, I'm very thankful to the people that put up with that video, because they're using kind of, I guess, footage that they isn't copyrighted in order to kind of collect this thing together.
Yeah,
and that looks like it's from some kind of musical movie.
It does.
definitely looks like a chorus of female dancers hosting a drag race. Yeah. So
Dancing around Halloween.
drag car race, not like a anyway. They just I was like, like fast cars and like dancers. And like they sent me some things and I was just like, and it's like stock.
It all
car.
works. Oh,
and Angus goes, you're right. So Angus tweaked it.
I was like, no, I need a hot drag race, hot female person dropping a. I had to spell it out for him completely. Like, I need muscle cars on road racing with he wanted dropping a kerchief and hitting the gas.
He wanted Sunday, Raceway Park.
Yeah, like that. There you go, Jimmy. Right, the Raceway.
I had a couple ideas for like intersplicing a couple things. The record. I said, "What about the label of the record?" So they kind of did that at the beginning for the intro. So Angus had them incorporate that, and then during rehearsals and when we were tracking the records. We were trying to get together some like footage that we could intersperse, but maybe for the next, we're
not social media masters, but I think so. Step Up, Step Aside, like that. The riff is kind of very. I can go through all the influences, but it's just kind of like I'm coming from a very Hendrix kind of place, like Hendrix. Let Me Stand Next to Your Fire meets. I'm a Rocker by Thin Lizzy or something like that. And then, but then the riff itself uses all these kinds of jumps like and that's just based on stuff that he does because he's like always kind of
how flattering is that?
He's just kind of like always jumping the octave and give me those cool high notes. And I was just like, I want to do a little lick that does that. So I want to do that. That's so it was born out of jealousy. And then and then I wanted that kind of stop time thing because it's a big showcase for the drummer, and I knew we had an awesome drummer. So there you go. Yeah. So that one worked out. Second tune on the record, For My Life.
Well, hey, let me just say this real quick. So the lyric on that, our friends, we were talking about our friends Paul and Lola out in Huntington that got with me when I met Angus. We were out there. My girlfriend and I were out in their place, and I was watching some television with Lola, and Angus started feeding me these songs. And the first song that I listened to was, and Lola said to me, "Hey, do you want to watch this thing with me, Scream?" And I said, "Like the movie Scream?" No, it's like a series. And it's so tongue in cheek. It's almost like Buffy the Vampire Slayer version of Scream. But anyway, these really, really attractive girls, in the film, with their kind of isms. And we're watching it and something happened. And one of the girls says, don't spiral out on me. And I thought, I'll have that. Yeah. And so that was the beginning of the lyrics with Lola sitting right there. And last night she said she got her copy of the record, and their name is on a special thanks there, if you could see it. It's on there. And she just noticed today, and she sent us a very, very nice message. Everyone had such a good time last night, as did we.
And so Jimmy writes he writes kind of like, if the song needs 16 lines of lyrics, like Jimmy comes up with like 64 of like couplets and maybe this, maybe that, and kind of imagery related to this and related to that. And then I start rolling the track, and Jimmy starts spitting verses essentially. And
it down.
And somewhere in there, he said, "Step up, baby," or "Step aside."
Yeah, 1 foot forward, three steps back, or something like that. And we just refined.
And somehow we wound up on step up, or step aside. And then once you've got that, you kind of work backwards out of the 64 lines that he's got and figure out which ones kind of compose a narrative that supports.
So somewhere in there's just the right word and there's just the right phrase, or you make a combination, and again, like what Angus said, and again, also Angus is really good sounding board for me, because I could say, does that sound right? Or, I've got this other thing. And he got a good instinct. And in the studio and as well, he was reminding me of things that I did when we cut the demos. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. So we'd incorporate that. It's all about the teamwork.
Yeah, it's really fun working together on it because, if that would have been like a vocal session where I'm kind of functioning as a producer, co-writer, Jimmy's bringing, all this magic to it, and it's just about facilitating that and kind of like, hey, what can we do to just make sure that we're catching, because it's all there. You just have to get it into the song in a way that like makes sense. And
Sure.
So it was kind of neat the way that the bouncing off each other worked.
Oh, absolutely. It's just so like enriching when you find a partner like Angus, or me. You very like-minded, very even-keeled, looking on the bright side of life and poking fun of all the other malarkey. Yeah. And just like Angus, I'm sure he's got a notebook for riffs and stuff like that. I know he's a huge Tony Iommi fanatic, but who isn't? But you kind of chronicle these things down, and I'm always like I said, oh, step up, don't spiral out on me. I'll see a road sign, I'll be like, oh, have that, and you just collect. David Bowie did that. And you collect, and sometimes you just throw it all together and mix it up a bit. And you go, that's a little bit more effective, maybe not more directive, but more reflective of what and double entendre plays a big part of the way that I write, because I'm such a huge Ian Gillan fan, and he's a great storyteller. He said he had a hard time singing Aussie lyrics and songs because Ian Gillan tends to, it's like every one of his songs is like a short story. And I had a reading teacher, Mrs. Walker, when I was in third grade. And if I got anything of anybody in school, any teacher, and it was, you got to read. That's where you get your ideas from. And I thought that always stuck with me.
Yeah,
that always stuck.
There's reading and walking in the park. I like sometimes if I'm working on lyrics or something. And so we move on to For My Life.
Mm-hmm.
That one had a totally different riff. That was,
oh, that's right, yeah, which I was like in love with.
Yeah, so it was funny. Like the riff was kind of like it was more like a Jethro Tull kind of thing, like that cry song.
Yeah, I like that part. That's cool. Right. It sticks with you.
Like that, and but it had like that, and it's something about that rhythm made Jimmy go clinging on for my life, kind of along with it.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really thought of that riff as being something that the vocal line would actually go along to. And so once Jimmy had that clinging on for my life, I was like, that was much of a heavier concept than the da 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 da, like the da 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 sounds light to me. I was like, it sounds light compared to clinging on for my life.
You're absolutely right on that, Paul.
And so then I rewrote the riff with the same rhythm just to make it sound. So that's what just
yeah. And like after I had been here and you could hear what I was singing, then he adapted what he would, which is what you do. It's kind of like a process, you're like weaving it in together.
And that came to me walking in the park or walking the dog or something, because it was like, because then I wanted that sound effect. So it was like, and so that was, again, like I just.
It could almost be like a Zakk Wylde Aussie kind of like
very thing, much. Yeah. So I just kind of completely rewrote that. And then the second section in that song has a little more of like an Aerosmith swagger.
Yeah, and I actually, what I found was, I worked with Steven Tyler. The next fashion gig that I had with Andy Hilfiger was Andrew Charles Hilfiger, but he couldn't use Hilfiger name because of copyright purposes and trademarks and stuff. And we launched a rock and roll clothing, scarves and rock and roll jeans and stuff like that. And we had we rented out we had a pop-up shop next to CBGB's, which is John Varvatos. We had the gallery called Riff Shop. We had a stage set up, and we do like jams and stuff like that's where I met James Roto Rotundi. That I also we hired him for the Humble Pie thing. He was doing a Mark Bolan and David Bowie show, and I said to Corinne, my girlfriend, I said, like, oh, this guy's terrific. I want to work with this guy. And just like Bobby Marks, when we were looking for a band, Bucket let me pick the band stateside. Then he came over and we worked at the band and stuff. But oh yeah, and so Steven Tyler and Chelsea Tyler were the face of the brand. We did a big launch at Macy's, and we did a big party downstairs because there was a full stage in the gallery. I don't know if you remember way back then, the big leaky floor, damp floor sort of thing. But when we were doing that song, like a dot straight between the eyes, I really had Steven Tyler in mind.
Yeah.
For that, his kind of delivery, like you could sing it straight, but when you put a little gumption in there, even better.
Yeah. And then it kind of, and so that's like the riff and the Aerosmithy part, and then there's the big halftime epic sounding section, which to me is that's like the big epic. To me, it's very, I don't know. To me, it's Sabbathy, but
yeah. And
you just go off. It's just good shredding at the back end.
But I'm a big fan of like big outros, big sections. Could be at the beginning. Depends on what works. Do you start the song with the title? You can do that. The Beatles. That's a big Beatles thing. Paperback Writer and all that kind of stuff. But I sent Angus. I was like, we were both trying to, I said, like, I can get a guy to play Mellotron on this. And I remembered I have this keyboard at home. I could put Mellotron. So I sent that to Angus, and he whipped the Mellotron section on there. And then, when it came time for keyboards, Angus got Rob Flores, amazing keyboard player, to add the Hammond to that.
Yeah.
And everyone chipped in with the backing vocals, and we did the keyboard outro for that. But like, that is like, that section. Oh, I'd been listening to a lot of 10cc at the time. So like, it's like you're a product of what you listen to. Just like your older brother that had the record collection. I was really lucky like that too. So
yeah. If we want to take them in order, what's next?
Oh yeah.
I can't even remember the order. Oh my gosh.
Cross the Bear.
And then Across the Bear.
We really talked about that one.
Yeah, Across the Bear, and that was all this guitar tuning.
Kenny, what's some of your impressions on Release Yourself?
That's my favorite track on the album. I know it's a heavier blues track, and it's probably the heaviest track on the album, but that is my favorite track on the album besides the closer. But what a job they did on that one. Mm-hmm. Jimmy's voice is great on it, but just like even on For My Life, he throws that little in the chorus. It's Jimmy Kunes. I mean, he could sing the phone book. He could sing the phone book to me.
Thank you, man.
My favorite song is For Release Yourself. You have a lot of power on that one. And Angus, you do it a lot of justice. You bring it. That's where your metal comes out a little bit on this blues album. This whole album flows. It's like a 70s, like they said, like a Foghat album. It's a great album, start to finish, man. Okay. You should be proud of this, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very
much. That's the Release Yourself. I put my notes in there that the back end, it feels like an arena rock passage. Like, it's just an arena rock passage. Like, just pick any band from the early 80s and they go off and, you hear like 45 seconds of the shredding with all the stuff going on. Like, go back to MTV as a kid
like a little jam, little jam session in there. Like Angus said at the beginning, there's a little bit of Hendrix through this whole album, though. There really is. He does a great job with it.
Well, Drift to me is like, it sounds, you guys sound, I mean, the tone of the guitar to open, and then Jimmy, your vocal comes in, and I'm like, oh my God, like first 30 seconds, I'm like, am I sitting here at, around a corner on frickin' 9th Street at Electric Lady Studios here? This is like, whoa, man.
Thanks very much. That's that linear edge that I was talking about that I kind of like subconsciously matched from the three demos.
Okay.
Yeah.
That riff for Drift is something that's like, I've gone through, Hendrix is one of my first guitar heroes, and like,
such a pretty song.
She should be everybody's.
Yes.
And,
And you do them justice, Angus. You really do. You do them justice on this song.
Yeah. Thanks. I had that riff kicking around for forever. Kind of like the whole intro was just kind of a thing, and I just didn't know what to do with it. And I was just like, oh, this is the time. Once we were like, hey, we're gonna finish this up and make it. Like, oh, well, then this one's in there. So I just kind of put it up for grabs, and Jimmy was like, okay,
every riff you sent me, every riff, and like, with extended sections with bridges and like in the working process, and a lot of those we pieced together section by section right here in Angus's studio. But I mean, we didn't leave everything you sent me we used.
And
no killer, no filler.
And the music,
it flows. It flows. And the way you end it, like with Thrift into Free and Homeward Bound, that's a good way to end it. Really well. It just flows from the maybe Let It Begin could open. But opening it with Step Up and Step Aside is a good way to open it, because you're giving everybody a bam, bam right away and letting them know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
We and Jimmy wrote the music for the bridge on Drift. That was like a whole section.
We got to a certain section, and I've been, I always have my iPhone at the ready with the and record on the voice message thing. And that you got to be careful when you get new phones. You don't want to lose all those files, but this has been something that I thought, oh, this is and Angus said, okay, now we need a bridge. And I said, I have this thing. And I was like, being more of a singer than a guitar player, through the years, I'm getting closer with matching my guitar playing with what I'm singing and the themes and everything.
Your vocal melody. Yeah.
Thanks, But and it worked.
And then it was just it was in a different key, so it was just a question of kind of shoehorning it into the transition.
I thought,
making it fit.
A little bit of had to get out the toolbox there to get it, kind of into it and out of it. But and then we cut a lot of it. We cut a lot of. I did after we'd done the drums at Van Romaine's place. Then I had done a bunch of guitars here, but I was self-producing, and I started to kind of lose my, I didn't have anybody bouncing it off, because I was kind of doing it here and there, and we weren't getting together to do it. I was just kind of like, let me do this. It's midnight. Let me do this. 4 a.m.
Angus kept pushing the rock and pushing the rock, and and the momentum that's the fulfilling thing about the whole thing.
But I did book Van's space just to do guitars. So we went back there, and I brought this amp. I made the whole record with this amp, and I brought the guitars over there and everything, and I cut the solo there, and Jimmy was basically producing me at that point. And I had played this one, and I was like, oh no, I got a better one. And he was just like, no, that's the one. You just need to fix the ending. So we did that, and then I kept listening to it, and I was like, this is the right solo, but the tone isn't exactly right. And so I set this up back at home, and I relearned the solo note for note, and I played it on this Telecaster back here to get it so that the tone fit in with it and everything. So anyway, I was just super grateful for Jimmy and Van in that instance. And it was great.
And likewise too with the vocals. It's nice to have someone that you can bounce ideas off of, and sometimes you miss things, and sometimes it's a collaboration. It's a fun collaboration. It was a great record to make. It seemed like it just was like whoosh, and the record was done, and Deko had it. We did a pre-release. We did our record release party last night. Now we're looking at just taking it further out on the road, and we'll see what comes up.
There'll be more live dates.
Maybe Nashville in March.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And Brian's backyard. Brian's in July.
Yeah, we'd love to do some more local stuff, hopefully, and then we've got maybe some plans to do some promotional shows just in a couple of places. And
I'll tell you where this would fit right in Daryl's house. That would be a perfect fit up there.
Yeah. Be a good room for us. You're right, man.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I'm going to make some phone calls later.
Thanks, Kenny.
I know a couple of people up there. They're good people.
Yeah. You played there before, right?
I have
You've
not.
never played that?
No, Daryl hasn't called.
Beautiful sound system.
Humble Pie did. We did a show up there, and then
That's right, Jimmy. That's right.
I went up to see Roto. Corinne and I went up a couple months ago to see him with Zoso. He does a good page on that.
Zeppelin. Yeah.
Good band.
Yeah.
That's the drummer I was telling you about from Jerry Cantrell's solo band.
Okay.
He's amazing. He's amazing. The whole band's amazing.
Yeah, that's a good tribute.
Yeah, Roto's a good egg.
Let me ask you,
Roto, Angus, Paul McGilloway. I'm so lucky to have such great guitar players that I have the opportunity to play with. I'm like, it's fantastic, really. It's fantastic.
Well, it's funny, Jimmy, when I had met you down at Arlene's at the Bon Scott birthday bash,
Right, yeah.
that was the first time you and I said hello. And, my connection to that show was John Jackson, and he introduced me to Paul, and then you introduced me to Greg. It was like this whole big New York cycle. So it's all coming full circle. But guys, I want to ask you, the album, you listen, 8 tracks, 4 on each side, how you go old school with the vinyl. But I feel like I'm left wanting a whole lot more. Like, you guys got to do more of this. Tell us, like, you're going to do this again, even if it takes another 10 years. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, we'll do it. It's already like 3 or 4.
I'm already sending him
There's already
little
3 or 4
vocal
things
ideas
need to be
and stuff. And,
fleshed out.
yeah, I think that would be a good thing to do. Why not continue?
It's gonna give me something to do on my Mondays and Tuesdays while I'm on tour with the TSO.
Yeah, you worked
Cool.
on you were out on the road, I think, right?
Yeah, it's nice to have.
Well,
I have a hotel room guitar, and then we usually have Monday and Tuesday off. So,
well, since we're talking about TSO, I thought of this, Angus. I want to put my plug in. So you got to tell somebody in that camp the next Savatage song that needs to be played is When the Crowds Are Gone.
good one.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Somebody's got to get that one. Every year I'm like, when is it going to come? That one and Gutter Ballet should be together this year in the tour. You need to tell somebody. I don't know who that is, but you got to tell somebody. You got to tell Metal Walt said so.
Not tell him.
Metal Walt says it's got to be when the crowds are gone. Well,
I think it would. Chris Cafferty would be a good one to start with that, Walt.
Yeah. I got his number. I got his cell phone number. I could call him.
Yeah.
So last year we did.
I've been setting up a Lego interview with Chris for about 2 years now. Since they put the little Lego figure of him in there for TSO, they have him with the Christmas tree. They gave him his own Lego at Legoland. I'm not kidding you.
That's amazing. That's so you know you've hit the big time.
That's good.
When you're a Lego.
Yeah. Okay, I love that song When the Crowds Are Gone. That I have no idea. We'll see.
I know. I'm just saying. But guys,
I love it when I get to do anything that was like one of Criss Oliva's features.
Yeah.
We did the Temptation Revelation last year, and that was the kind of thing where of all the stuff that you have to nail, Johnny Lee is in my band. He was one of Chris's closest friends, and so it was all about that first day of rehearsal, me getting through it and getting the thumbs up from Johnny Lee, and then I was like, it's going to be a good tour. Because
that's good.
If I hadn't gotten that thumbs up, it would have been a rough tour.
So, guys, again, congratulations on the album. Give us the socials. Like, where can people buy the album? Where can we find all about you guys? What's your socials?
Well, to get the album, go to dekoentertainment.com, DEKO entertainment.com. That's where you can order the hard copies. And they've also got these flats. That's the LP size one that kind of will, if you want the signed version, we've signed these flats that ship along with the LP, and the same with the CDs. There's a smaller flat that has the signature on it, and so that's where to get the hard copies. It's streaming on Apple Music, Spotify, and Amazon, and wherever else.
Yeah, all the major,
all the stuff. In terms of social media, I mostly post on Instagram, which is Angus Clark GTR. So that's my handle everywhere. I post on Instagram and I cross post to Facebook, and then I go over to Facebook like twice a week and see who's and interact with folks, and it's fun. It's great community in both places. I also have a YouTube channel. It's the same thing, Angus Clark GTR. So that's my stuff. Jimmy, you're mostly Facebook?
Mostly Facebook, but I do have a site up there, Jimmy Kunes Official, jimmykunes.com, which kind of serves as the congregation site. And I always put up announcements of what we're doing. That'll be on there. And that's always a work in progress, but it's looking pretty good. So go check that out.
Maybe we'll do a Kunes Clark Band website. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Charlie. See what we can get happening.
Well, listen, we're all Jersey guys, and Kenny's not far away. You guys start writing, you give me a call. You need somebody to intercede and say, Walt, how do you feel about this? I'm right here in East Hanover. And I do think the three of us need to go out somewhere and grab some beers in the near future. All three of us are very close to each other.
Oh, that's right. We talked about that.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a couple places here that I wouldn't mind checking out. I still have never been inside St. James Gate.
Oh, you've never been in there?
No. And what's the place, the town hall, or that really historic looking thing? They do an Oktoberfest there.
Oh, yeah.
We shouldn't be talking
the one in South Orange.
Yeah.
Well, you got where you got Tierney's in Montclair. I mean, it's been there for 150 years. We'll just meet there for some beers.
And you can sit out back at Egan's, which
if you want a proper bar, I'm sorry. If you want a proper bar experience in our area, we have to go to Vauxhall area of Union, go to the Liberty Tavern.
Oh, that's old school place, right?
That's a proper drinking bar.
Where is it? Vauxhall?
It's just over here. It's like right near the on-ramp to 78.
There you go.
A New Jersey interview right now.
That's right. This is it.
Hey, how lucky
guys!
Such grand pubs,
Let's go up to Hanover. We'll go to the roller rink. We'll do a couple
laps. My son works there, and we'll have him
drive us around to all the drinkeries.
I'll have my son work there and put the Kunes Clark album on, and instead of the pop music on a Friday evening for the teenagers. Sound good, guys?
Yeah, and it's up on Apple Music. It's up on Amazon Music. It's up everywhere, really.
It's all over. Deko Records.
What's that?
Deko Records. Just go on the website. That's where we got it.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, guys, this has been an amazing hour discussion.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's a great notch in.
Oh, of course, the Great Notch in.
The Great Notch. Exactly, the Great Notch.
Our good friends, the Sydney Green Street Band, they play there. We've gone with Van and Angus and I.
Yeah. Okay. I went to college at Montclair, so I know the Great Notch well.
Oh, nice. Let's see. We got options.
Cool.
It's good to have options.
That's good. Well, guys, I want to say best of luck with the album. We'll make sure all the socials are up there. And seriously, this has been a great discussion. So don't forget to visit metalmayhemroc.com and sign up for our newsletter. Stay updated on new podcast episodes, YouTube interviews, CD and concert reviews. Also, join us for our live radio show on Metal Devastation Radio on Monday nights. And if you enjoy our content, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review for us at Apple Podcasts. So, for my guests, Kenny Kessel and Jimmy Kunes and Angus Clark, I'm Metal Walt, and this is Metal Mayhem ROC.